Good evening again. Here I am, Mr. Kwiatkowski, to bore you one more time with 1.7. As in 1.6, you learn what a function is as far as input, output, those different types of things. With 1.7, basically what you're going to do is learn how to graph these particular functions. Okay? So, let's look at the top up here. I'm going to ask you a couple questions and hopefully you can answer these particular ones. You can use a graph to represent what? What do you think you can represent? What are we talking about? How about a function? Okay? In a given table, and a table is basically where you put the x and y values and that type of stuff. Each corresponding pair of an input and output values form what? Give you a clue. What is x, y considered? If you say ordered pair, that would be correct. An ordered pair of numbers can be plotted as what? A point on a graph. The x coordinate is the input, and sorry I didn't write this, but the y coordinate then would be, sorry about the writing here, the y coordinate would be then the output. Okay? So how do I go about graphing these particular functions? Well, let's look at the first one. It says graph the function y equals x plus 1 with the domains of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? So I need to find out what the range is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say y is equal to x. The first domain that they give me is 1 plus 1. So y would equal 2. Talking about up top where you have, the tables, we're going to make a little table here. So I'm going to draw this. I'm going to say my x value and my y value. So our first x value was 1, and that gave me an output of 2. Okay? The next one, it says my input or my domain or my input is 2. So 1 or y equals 2, my x value, plus 1, which would be 3. So y is equal 3. So we plug 2 into the x and we got 3. So my x value, my input is 2, and the next one would be, or my y would be 3. Y equals my next domain, which is 3, plus 2. So 3 plus 2 is 5, so my y would be 5. So what I have here is 3 and 5. Okay? And the last one, we have y is equal to 4, domain, plus 2, which is equal to 6. So I have input of 4, my output is sorry, this should have been 1. This should have been 5. 2 plus 1 is 3. And this one here should have been plus 1. I'm sorry. I may have confused you, but 3 plus 1 is 4. So this would be 4. And my domain, this would be 4 here. And then my 5 would be, or my 4 would be 5. Okay. I'm only human. At least I caught my mistake. So now what I'm going to do is plot these particular points. So I look, my x value is 1. So from the point of origin, I'm going to count over 1 on the x, a positive 1. And I'm going to go up 2 on the y axis. And I plot my first point. The next one is 2, 3. So I'm going to move over 2 from the point of origin on the x and move up 3, which my next point would be here. Next one would be 3 and up 4, and the last one would be 1, 2, 3, 4 over and up 5, and now I have it graphed. Okay? The key thing to remember here, and this is kind of a little hint, in order to have a function, you cannot have a x value repeated. What I mean by that is I'm just going to draw a couple little graphs here to show you what I'm talking about. There's one graph, there's two graphs, there's three graphs. Okay? That being said, this here, see how the dots are, would be considered a function. Okay? If the dots did this, that is considered a function. If you have dots that go up and down, straight up and down like this, this is not a function. This is a function, this is a function, this is not a function. The reason is because here is your x value. Well, for x being 1, you have positive 1 or positive 2, positive 1y. So you can see that you have a repeating, or one x value 1 has more than one answer. Okay? The last thing here that we're going to go over for chapter 1 is write a function rule for this graph and identify the domain and range. Okay? Well, what we're going to look at is that we're going to make a table first. Okay? So we're going to say x and y. So I look at my first dot here. It's on x at 2 and it's on 0 for y. So my first one is going to be 2, 0. The next one is 4 over and it's 1 up. So my coordinate points for this are going to be 4, 1. Next one is 6 over, 2 up. So this is 6, 2, and obviously we're going to have 8 over and 3. Okay, now that we have our actual inputs and outputs, we need to actually solve this particular problem or give it an answer or a problem. Excuse me, we need to find the relationship between the input and the output, and then what we're going to do is write a function rule. Okay, so function rule we need to write. Well, we know a function would be y equals x somehow. That's the basic function rule. Okay, so now what we have to do is establish if we plug something into x, we have to get the value of y. So if I look and I say, okay, my x is 2, how am I going to get x to be 0 or y to be 0? Okay? So I think, well, if I divide that in half, that gives me 1, and I'm going to subtract 1. So a possible rule here would be y is equal to half x minus 1. Okay? So let's figure this out. That does work for this particular rule. If I say 2 into x, so half of 2 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. Okay, well, it works there. That sounds great. The next one we have, let's look at it. We say y is equal to half x, and we're saying x here is 4 minus 1. So let's figure this out. Half of 4 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. So 1 equals 1. Okay, well, that works for that one. Let's do the next one. We have y is equal to half x minus 1. So we're going to plug in. So 6, nope, sorry. We say y is 2 is equal to half of x value, 6 minus 1. So half of 6 is 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. Does 2 equal 2? Yes, it does. So this is true. This is true. Okay, the 0 is true. So we now have found our function rule. So our function rule is going to be y is equal to half x minus 1. Why do you find the function rule? Well, state exam and that type of stuff likes to ask you if your domain is 100, what is your range? So now that you have the function rule, all you have to do is say, okay, half of 100. So we say y is equal to a half of 100 minus 1. Well, half of 100 is 50 minus 1, which would be 49. So for my 100th x value, my y value is going to be 49. Hopefully these videos have helped you for chapter 1. My suggestion at this point in time is go ahead and review as much as possible. There will be a chapter test coming up shortly after these reviews. And once again, this is Mr. Ch1Sec7, or Mr. K, signing off, and have a great evening.